Welcome everyone to another edition of the Tony Sirianni podcast. I'm thrilled to have John Amore with us. I think this is his first day as president of Kestra Financial. So welcome, John.
Thank you, Tony. It certainly is. So I'm excited to spend my first hour as president with you.
Well, thank you very much. It should be a lot of fun. And if we spend an hour, we're going to shoot ourselves. Hopefully, 20 something minutes, we're going to get to the point of what we want to talk about today. I'm actually very interested in your journey. How'd you get here? So it's the first day of at Kestra. It's a great firm, with a good reputation. And I imagine there are some challenges with coming into a place, just that's already sort of established and coming in. So tell us a little bit about all that.
Yeah, it's been a good journey. My journey with Kestra started about 5 years ago. I was working actually at UBS up in New York, and I had the opportunity to talk to James Bohr, our CEO, about Kestra and running the wealth management business at Kestra. And like I knew the independent space was where the business was moving to, and I knew Kestra was on the rise, and so I wasn't particularly looking to leave New York or Wirehouse world, but I came down to Austin and met with James, met with the team. I'm like, oh yeah, this company is going to be great. And so I joined as the head of wealth management, and I was in that role for the last 5 years. And then today is my first day as president. Stephen Langlois, our previous president, announced his retirement at the beginning of this year. And Stephen has been a great mentor and leader for me. And so I'm happy to step into his shoes and sort of see what happens in our next chapter here at Kestra.
Well, what's interesting about that, it's interesting because you're in New York, you're at a wirehouse, and the perspective, you know what I mean? Because even I had a similar, but this 15 years ago, but you're seeing this thing happening right out there, and it's growing, and you have a sense of it. And then once I'm just curious about that aha moment when you sort of stepped into it and said, well, this is actually for real. Because I think there's a fair amount of gaslighting, disinformation, whatever you want to say. When you're sitting in a wirehouse desk, they're like, "Oh, there's no better place than this, right? There's no better technology, there's no better products. You're not going to be able to do this or that if you leave." And all of a sudden, one day, you're like, "Well, wait a minute."
Yeah. So at UBS, I had the ability to manage wealth management teams for like 14 years. And that was around the world. I worked in a couple of different regions. But one thing is always consistent. To me, the best advisors have always been the most entrepreneurial advisors. It's the DNA of being able to go out, build a business, build relationships.
Yeah.
And so as I saw that, I'm like, well, it's clear that if they're truly entrepreneurial people, they will be better suited in the independent space where they can run as fast as they want, do it the way they want to do it, because good entrepreneurs have great instincts. And
Yeah.
that's what the independent space serves those people so well, because it gives them that field to play on.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, it's like I said, it is eye-opening. You and I talked a little bit about um what do you think sort of take that entrepreneurial spirit that an advisor has and also the way you look at this business as sort of a complete wealth manager. You and I talked a little bit about tell me something about that and how you sort of, came to that concept. Obviously, you view entrepreneurism as a big piece of it, but
Yeah, it's as our industry has gone from brokers to advisors to wealth managers, um, the wirehouses have very much been on the forefront of driving those changes and had sort of built businesses to help people do that. And the independent space, I think, has finally caught up where you can be a complete wealth manager in the independent space, and you don't need to be so dependent on a big bank or a wirehouse to give you all those resources. And when I talk about a complete wealth manager, I mean the ability to do financial planning in a thoughtful and comprehensive way, the ability to run your own investment process and have access to alternative investments and more sophisticated strategies that used to only exist in wirehouses, but now exist in the independent space. The ability to deliver on insurance needs and education needs and do the wealth planning. There's just lots of resources now accessible to independent advisors to make sure they can give comprehensive advice, complete wealth management advice to their clients, which wasn't the case 5, 10 years ago.
there wasn't. But there's been a democratization of a lot of things. Technology is one of them, right? Sort of moved in that direction. And it's not, and years ago, the wires were the most innovative place to be. I mean, I worked at Merrill Lynch when they came out with the CMA account. I remember advisors saying, why would you want to give your clients a check? That means they can take money
That's
out of
right.
their account. I mean, it was like consternation, not really understanding it, you know. And then today, well, another example, the phone on my desk, I remember when I was at Legg Mason, they told me the phone on my desk was a Watts line. It cost $10,000, the phone. And when I started my first independent firm, I got my phone for free with the internet. So it's
Wow.
a
Yeah.
bit of a switch, you know.
Yeah, no, it's and that look, technology has enabled a lot of this, and I just think other players in the ecosystem, whether it's asset managers or banks, have realized that hey, there are some high performing independent wealth management firms. Some are RIAs, some are associated with broker dealers, but if that's where the talent's going, we need to make sure we've got an offering for those people, because and so now all those firms are thinking beyond wirehouses as well.
Yeah, I mean, much more sophisticated business. I think if there was a knock on it 15 years ago, it was, you know, it didn't have the same technology. You didn't have access to the same products. But then you have these larger firms and people aggregating, getting scale, and then creating, you know, access for these people, you know, who brought sophisticated businesses with them from the
Yeah,
wirehouses.
no doubt, exactly.
Yeah, and Kestra's been on the forefront of that too, which is interesting. I've watched the firm, you know, grow, and been proud of my association with it. You know, in the past, it's a great place, and you're full of great people. And talk a little bit about what you're looking for in terms of a business. So now, I mean, because Kestra is, you know, big organization now, and well funded, which is, you know, not true of everybody in the space. And so, what do you guys look for when you look for partners to come together?
Yeah, well, let me pick up on your big comment. I, we're big enough to matter, but we're
Yeah.
certainly not too big, right? We have some competitors who are truly big, who are effectively becoming wirehouses of the independent space. We are not that big, and we don't have any desire to be that big. We love the fact that we are big enough again to matter, to be able to make good investments, to have a healthy balance sheet, to be able to attract the right types of advisors, but not make this feel big like a factory.
Yeah, yeah.
And I respect those business models. It's not what we do. And you know, a lot of our strategy starts with what do we say no to? Who do we not want to be? And I've been super impressed with the discipline we've had for the last 5 years about saying, who do we serve? Who's a client? Who's an advisor that will be successful with us? Because when we work with the people who make sense for us, they grow, we grow. Um, Whenever we go down a path of where something isn't our target market, the right profile of advisor, we learn from that. And so it's about making sure that we're working with high performing wealth management teams, and a high performing meaning they're usually planning oriented, heavy advisory oriented, are looking to grow. You know, they're not one of
Yeah.
these firms that have sort of stopped the organic growth. So people who tend to be a little bit younger and sort of have a lot of runway, and the people who want the kind of connection with home office that is sort of personable and meaningful. Like I know our clients, I know our advisors. We break bread regularly with them because it's important for me to know how they're running their business and what's top of mind, and it's important for them to have that same level of access and relationship with us.
You're not doing anybody a favor by bringing them onto a platform where they're going to be uncomfortable or not take advantage of all the things, you know, that there are.
Yeah, no, we want win-win relationships, and knowing who we serve and what types of advisors from the get-go is super important. And so that all starts with just good recruiting.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, having that alignment is a critical factor. Um, a little bit what I see out there today, you know, for advisors looking for a place to go and trying to figure out a fit. I mean, you know, equity is a centerpiece of what it is. We talked a little bit about balance sheet, how Kestra's, you know, pretty solid there. There are an awful lot of firms in making noise in the space that don't have, you know, secure balance sheets or fortress balance sheets, however you want to say it, or don't have the capital to sort of, you wonder, yeah, they'll offer you equity, but what do you get an equity in? Because
Yeah, sure.
what's
That's right.
what's actually there? And then there are a lot of firms that have assets and production, but their margins are so slim that they're barely hanging on. They're one, you know, fin refine away from going out of business, and it's concerning to me. I don't know what you see when you're out there, or how you guys talk about that or look at that.
Yeah. Well, look, as you know, we have new investors in Kestra this as of the beginning of this year. Warburg Pincus was our majority investor for a while. Now Stone Point Capital has returned. And so knowing what they valued in us is just our quality of earnings.
Yeah.
That we run this business at a margin that makes sense. And our source of earnings is coming from good wealth management businesses. We don't get distracted with things that will take us away from serving our advisors. There's lots of ways to make money in this business. We try to stay focused on the things that are repeatable, recurring, and are actually adding value to the clients that we serve,
Well,
not distracting them.
and building enterprise value.
Yep. So we
The
thank
advisors.
we have a lot of capital alignment with a number of our largest firms and advisors who had the opportunity to invest in Kestra, and we think it allows great alignment between us and our clients. We were able to participate in that. That happened in our last set of investors as well, and those advisors who participated, I think, are very grateful for the opportunity to be part of the enterprise value being created at Kestra and what's just happening in our industry.
Yeah, and also having a balance sheet means if you have a rep that works with you and they find another business they want to, you said you want guys who want to grow and they want to grow, that you can help them with that. You can help with succession. You can help with, I mean, without a balance sheet, you got to go borrow to do that.
That's right. And look, there's no shortage of transition activity happening in our industry. The
Right.
demographics of our industry, the shortage of younger advisors, is just creating a lot of transition opportunities and the ability for us to find tuck-ins for those advisors who are looking to tuck into something larger, or for those firms that are growing fast and looking to build a larger firm with more advisors and in a bigger geography. Having the balance sheet and capital to make that happen is something we're excited to do, and sort of get the next generation of firms and advisors in a good spot.
Where do you, that brings up a question in my mind, sort of, how do you see the space developing, the wealth management space in general? Where do you see it? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, well, it's hard to imagine a scenario where there's not more contraction. There's still a lot of fragmentation, despite all the consolidation that's happened. There's still a lot of fragmentation, and I think there are firms that are very large that continue to get larger. All right, and that's a business model that makes sense for them. Then I think there is a lot of firms that wealth management is their hobby business, right? It's not it's not their main business. They sort of do it on the side. I think those firms will have a tough time finding their way in attracting and keeping really high quality wealth managers, just because the businesses never get the investment, the talent, or the focus that a firm that's truly committed to wealth management is. And so I think you got to be of a certain size. You don't need to be 20,000 advisor big, but you probably need to be at least 1,000 advisors big to stay relevant. And it needs to be your core focus, because this is not it's not a hobby business anymore. Wealth management is sophisticated, needs a lot of infrastructure. It needs a lot of technology thought and business planning. And so I suspect those firms that are not making this their core focus will need to consolidate with somebody else at some point.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that you know, one of the things that's sort of, driving, growth, right now is this sort of movement of advisors between, you've got, these firms set up in the sort of middle space. You have wirehouses over here, you got sort of quirky RIAs over here, and there's a movement that's driven by some of the things we've talked about, financing, for instance, and the financial health of firms, and people are trying to find their way, and it gets confusing with, equity and all that. So some of the things that we've talked about in terms of what might be the best fit for guys. Let's talk a little bit about one of the things that really drives movement in there's culture. Let's talk. I know it's important to you. And
Sure.
so how do you now, especially now you're new, first day as president, you're going to get in there, and you have a successful culture already. What do you think about sort of continuing to build that?
Yeah. So, rule number one, do no damage.
Right. Not broke.
We love the culture that we have here. And so I'm grateful to receive a company that has such a good culture. And it's my commitment to our clients and advisors that it stays strong and continues to get better, and that includes bringing in new firms and making sure that they're additive to our culture. Look, we're in a relationship business, right? And so people are successful in this business because relationships matter to them. They know how to build relationships. And so that should be true with the home office or the wealth management firm that they affiliate with. And the best advisors in our industry also tend to learn from each other. And in the independent space, where not everyone's in a branch going to sales meetings, it's important to have a community where advisors help each other.
Yeah, it's critical. You know, we're an apprentice business, and
Totally.
and there is something lacking when you don't have an office and you can't go down the hall. This guy does 401ks, or this guy, let me check in on them, or you get mentored a little bit. It's tough. And you mentioned earlier that you have sort of a younger practice, right? You guys are, sort of skew a little bit younger, guys, interested in growth. That's really sets you apart in my mind in this business because it's really hard to find succession candidates. It's really hard to find that next generation of people to come in, and it's a challenge across the board. Merrill Lynch canceled its training program. I mean, it's hard to find.
Yeah, I always feel the most valuable thing we can do for our advisors sometimes is just curate an opportunity for them to interact with each other, learn from each other. Advisors trust other advisors more than
Absolutely.
anybody else, more than
Yes.
home office, more than coaches. And so, if we can create a community of people who are high performing, share similar values, and are willing to share and be generous with their learnings, man, it's so important that we do that.
Well, I'm going to say that that's a high note. So I always like to stop on a high note. So that's great, and I think that that's super important for our business. And I'm glad that you're doing that and able to keep that going. So, thank you for being here, John. We'll certainly talk again.
Yeah, Tony. Hey, appreciate what you do for our industry. Great to spend some time with you this morning.
Thanks, man.